Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah if you're new here, and in this video we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I did this tag last year and I believe I did it the year before as well, so this is a yearly tradition on my channel to do a mid-year check-in and see how things are going. How are my goals? What am I reading? How's the past 6 months of reading been so far? I will leave all the questions below, as well as the original creator of this tag and their video. Let's start with question number 1. Question 1 is the best book you've read so far this year, and of course I have to say 3 things because you can't just pick one. The best book in terms of its execution is Braiding Sweetgrass, hands down. This is a nonfiction, indigenous science and lore and practice work of nonfiction, and I not only learned a lot, but this was just so poetically written and beautiful that this has to win in terms of the most stunning execution, in my opinion. The book that I'm most obsessed with from the year is A Taste of Golden Iron by Alexandra Rowland. This is like a new fantasy romance favorite that I'm just like irrationally in love with. This is a queer fantasy story surrounding a high-stakes political situation where there's counterfeiting happening in the empire, and the prince and his bodyguard have to figure out what's going on. This was so much fun. I loved the romance, I loved the writing, I loved the politics and the world building, and I'm just obsessed with this. As far as visceral reaction that hit me right in the nostalgia, I have to say Arrows of the Queen by Mercedes Lackey, because this made me think of my childhood and my childhood favorites. Question number 2 is the best sequel you've read this year, and I have to give this to the Daevabad trilogy. The sequels I read were The Kingdom of Copper and The Empire of Gold. These are books 2 and 3 in that series, and I think book 1 for me was like good, and I could see the potential, but it wasn't great. I think Kingdom of Copper is my favorite in the trilogy, and Empire of Gold was a really solid conclusion. I think this is a really fun trilogy and really great, and I'm really glad I finished the series this year. Number 3 is a new release that you want to get to, but you haven't yet. Of course, it's hard for me to stay on top of all of the awesome books that are coming out, but a few that stick out to me are God Killer by Hannah Kenner. This is an adult fantasy, and just everything I've heard about this book just makes it super appealing to me, and I just haven't gotten my hands on it yet. And the other one I'll throw out there is actually a romance. An Island Princess Starts a Scandal by Adriana Herrera. This is a queer historical romance featuring a woman of color, and I read the first book in this series, A Caribbean Heiress in Paris, and absolutely loved that book. And this is following one of the main characters from that book's her best friend, who is a queer woman. And so I'm really excited to get to this new release romance, and I just haven't gotten around to it yet. I need to get my hands on it very soon. The cover is striking. I love this cover. It's so pink. Number 4 is the most anticipated releases I have for the second half of the year, and obviously I'm really excited about Brandon Sanderson's Secret Projects number 3 and 4, but I'm also really excited for Silvia Moreno Garcia's, that's hard to say, Silvia Moreno Garcia's newest release, which is Silver Nitrate, which is like a noir thriller about film. And I really think Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing style is top tier. Her characters are incredible, and especially when she writes about noir, thriller, film, she's dabbled in these subjects before, and I think this is going to be the best work yet in that vein. Number 5 are biggest disappointments. Now, none of these books I hated. I just thought I would love them, and I didn't. First is A House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I'm reading through all of T. Kingfisher's works right now, essentially, and this is T. Kingfisher's newest release, and this is a horror novel, and I just thought it was very mid. It was very 3 stars, and I was really hoping to love this one. I'm actually pretty disappointed in Brandon Sanderson's Secret Project number 2. This was again an instance of I thought I was gonna love this and give it 5 stars, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. So like it wasn't bad. I just was hoping to love it, and it was very middle of the road for me. Ocean's Echo by Everina Maxwell. This is a sci-fi get queer romance set in the same universe as Winter's Orbit, and I just didn't love this one. I didn't love the couple, I didn't love the plot, and it was just very 3 stars. So it's not bad, it just wasn't a new favorite like I wanted it to be. My biggest surprises, or in the positive category, we have Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This is a young adult romance, and I gave this 4 stars. I thought this was incredibly fun. I have never, ever enjoyed young adult romance. Even when I was a teenager, I didn't read young adult romance. And this really hit it out of the park for me. I thought this was so much fun. The other biggest surprise I had this year was Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This really surprised me because I was very skeptical going into it. Heard a lot of buzz about this book, and I'm very hesitant picking up books written by middle-aged white guys, and especially in the fantasy category, you never know what you're gonna get, and I was so pleasantly surprised by the craft of this novel, the plot, the stories. The female characters were fantastic, and there was a twist at the end that I just did not see coming and made me absolutely follow head over heels for this work and this author. I'm floored by this work. Next is your favorite new favorite author. I'd say John Gwynne has a high chance of being a favorite, even though I've only read one of his books. And T. Kingfisher, I think I can officially say, is a favorite author. Even though I don't rate, the ratings for her books are all over the place for me, but I love her writing and her wit and her tone in almost every single one of her books. Even if I don't end up loving the book in the end, I enjoy her writing so much. So I think T. Kingfisher is officially a favorite, and John Gwynne has that potential this year. Number 8 is Newest Fictional Crush, and of course I have 2 of them. One is Erin from Mistakes Are Made. She is the older woman in this romance. It's an age gap, best friend's mother romance. Erin is hot as F. That's all I'll say. My other newest crush is Drake from Rebel by Beverly Jenkins. Drake has he is a smooth talker, is all I'll say. He is, 1, incredibly attractive in my head, and 2, he knows exactly what to say. And before I reveal too much about myself, we're gonna move on. Number 9 is new favorite characters, just characters in general. I love Alizade Al-Khattani from the Daybabad trilogy so much. Even when I read book 1 years ago, Ali was such an incredible character that he stuck with me for all these years. And then finishing the trilogy just solidified him as a new favorite character. He's so interesting and nuanced and driven, and I just love his characterization and him in general. I love Orca from Shadow of the Gods. She is an older protagonist who's a wife and mother, and she's kind of a retired fighter. She is just fierce and incredible. I love her mama bear energy and her ease of murdering people. I just think Orca is incredible. I also love Amina from The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi. Again, another older female protagonist who is a mother going on one last hurrah. And I just love that type of character in general. And the last character is Tress from Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I think Tress is one of the most delightful characters I've ever read. Number 10 is books that made me cry, and I will say I have 2 different levels of crying when it comes to reading: books that made me happy cry and books that made me sad cry. I sad cried for Arrows of the Queen. There were just some deaths that happened that hit me a lot harder than I thought they would. But a book that made me happy cry with how cute the romance and the relationship and the found family was Mistakes Were Made. I actually cried reading this book just because of how lovely the romance was executed, and these delightful characters and the side characters and their little found family. Number 11 is a book that made me happy. Lots of books made me happy this year, but a book that I just smiled the entire time I was reading it is Half a Soul by Olivia Atwater. This was just so delightful. This is a Regency-inspired fantasy romance about a main character whose soul gets half taken, and so she's very autistic coded, and it's her love story, and she gets to go on an adventure and solve a mystery. And I just had a delightful time reading this one. Another couple of books that just made me happy were The Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming. Again, another book I just thought was preposterous, but I was smiling the entire time I was reading. Another fantasy romance. And also The Adventures of Amina El-Sarafi was so fun, and it just made me smile pretty much the whole time. 12 is The Most Beautiful Book You Have Bought This Year. I am a sucker for these 90s covers. These mass market paperback 90s editions of Mercedes Lackey's books and Robin Hobb's. I think these are incredible. I think they're beautiful, and they were cheap too, so that makes them extra special in my opinion. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? Besides all of them, all of the books, so many books all the time, I'm not doing so well on my physical TBR. I have been reading a lot of audiobooks and ebooks actually, so I need to prioritize my physical TBR, and just a couple of those are Astrid Parker Doesn't Fall, The Bone Shard Emperor, and Ruin of Kings. These are just a few books on my physical TBR I would love to get to. So hopefully by the end of the year, I would really like to get to these. Lastly is favorite booktube community answer, and I always try to pick different people every time I do this tag or every time I call out booktubers. Two new booktubers to me that I'm loving their content is Sarah from Sarah Without an Age. Sarah has been around for a while, but I never saw her videos before until a couple months ago, and she's hilarious. She has really interesting reading tastes all over the place, kind of like I am, and I just really appreciate her content. I think she's hilarious, and I'm enjoying her immensely. The other new booktuber to me is Tori Morrow. And I follow Tori on TikTok and BookTube, and I enjoy both of her platforms immensely. She's a sci-fi fantasy reader, and I like getting more sci-fi recommendations, honestly, and I think she's got some great picks on there. Really quickly, this video is probably super long. I'm going to go through my goals that I set at the beginning of the year, and how are we doing on those goals. I had a goal to read 12 nonfiction books, one a month, and I have completed 5 out of the 6 so far. There was one month that I missed. I don't know if nonfiction is going to be a constant on this channel. I just have been trying to read more nonfiction, and it just hasn't been happening. So I don't know if I still want to keep reading nonfiction, but it might be time to say I'm just going to read it when I feel like it, and not have hard goals. Next is read 10 disability books. I've read 26 books with disability rep. Then I want to read 10 trans books, and I've read 22 books with trans rep and or the author is trans. 10 books with polyamorous rep. I've read 14, and reading 10 Indigenous books. I'm really proud of this, and I've read 6. And last year, I didn't read any Indigenous literature until the end of the year, essentially. So I'm glad I'm choosing to dedicate some time to reading some more Indigenous literature this year. So I'm pretty proud of that. Need to keep going though. I had another goal to read 50% of the books by Black, Indigenous, and people of color authors, and I have read 35% of my reads have been by people of color, and so I could definitely be doing more. This is a very challenging goal because the next goal I have is to read more classic fantasy and sci-fi, and a lot of that is written by white people. So I'm having a hard time juggling all of the goals that I am trying to manage. I'm also like binge reading particular authors. So like T. Kingfisher, I've read like 10 books by her, and she's a white woman. So it's hard to keep things in balance. I definitely could be doing better on my BIPOC author goal though. Next is read 100 books. I read 103 so far this year at the midpoint of the year. Hopefully I read another 100. Next is to use my library. Of course, I do this all the time. 61% of the books that I read are from the library this year. I've kept my reading journal up to date. I have published roughly 1 video a week, and every video I have published so far has been closed captioned, which I'm very proud of. I still have a few old ones on the channel from my early days that don't have edited closed captions, but eventually I will get to those, like 7. Participate in YouTube challenges, readathon, Instagram challenges, join a book club, maybe start doing reviews on TikTok. Well, first of all, I don't want to start a TikTok, so cross that out. I did join an in-person book club. I started an in-person book club with my siblings, and I also joined a book club on Fable, the Cozy Fantasy Foundation? I forget what it's called. I've joined that one on Fable. I haven't done any Instagram challenges. I have done a few readathons, and I don't think I've done any YouTube challenges this year other than Blackathon. So a few goals here and there, yes and no. My last 2 goals are to read my current physical TBR and to finish some ongoing series, and I've completed about half of the series that I wanted to complete by the end of the year, and I've read a few of my own books. I need to get back to that. Thank you so much for watching this video. That was the mid-year book freakout tag, as well as a quick goals check-in for the midpoint of the year. How has your reading been going this year? I would love to know in the comments down below. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye.